Welcome back to another episode of History in Your Own Backyard. I'm your host, Susie Selleck, here today in Marietta, Ohio at the Sons and Daughters of Pioneer Rivermen. And I'm joined by Taylor Abbott today. Taylor, thanks for having us here.
Thank you for coming. We appreciate it.
So when did the Sons and Daughters of the Pioneer Rivermen, when did it begin? What was the idea behind it?
So in 1939, there were a group of river people that had either worked on the river or had a genuine interest. A lady, a school teacher from Clarington, Ohio, named Elizabeth Litton, was really the catalyst behind the design of Sons and Daughters. And her goal was to bring people together for two reasons. One, to have an annual meeting, and two, to preserve river history. Nice.
Okay. All right. That was the idea. And then you and I were talking. How many generations are you?
My family's got 200 years in river life, river history. They started out building river boats, captaining, chief engineer, so the history runs deep with me.
Do you have to be like part of the bloodline? You have to be like born into it? I mean, how does that work to become, a member of the Sons and Daughters?
That's actually a great question that we often get, and the answer to that is no. You do not have to be you do not have to have a blood connection to the river. The only requirement to be a member of S&D is a genuine interest in river history and that fellowship that we bring to the table.
The organization, it formed in 1939, correct. And so then following, how did the idea of a museum come to be?
One of the ideas behind S&D was river history, preservation of it. So in 1941, that became a reality. Many of the people that had joined S&D had connections to the river, were river captains. They had memorabilia, as you can see here in the museum, and that's really what got it started. At that time, the Ohio Historical Society approached the Sons and Daughters and asked if they would be interested in creating a museum. And that was the real catalyst to begin it. And it started in the basement of Campus Martius, and it didn't take long before they quickly outgrew that small room and they expanded it. And for 30 years it stayed in Campus Martius before in the 1970s this new facility was constructed.
And the facility is fantastic, and I love that we got a little tour beforehand. It is every bit as fantastic. I mean, you need a few hours
Absolutely.
To be here. It's glorious.
There's some really, this is really one of the museums with river history. I think it's got the maturest and one of the finest river collections of all the river museums in this country.
Can you talk to us about the significance of the collection that's stored here at the Ohio River Museum?
So this is
the Sons and Daughters.
Absolutely. This is a unique situation wherein the state of Ohio doesn't own, the Ohio History Connection doesn't own the majority of the collection. S&D actually owns it. So throughout these last 70 plus years, we've had a working relationship with the Ohio History Connection to put these items on display and really tell the story that begins with the steamboat era and comes all the way up into more of the diesel era. So our collection varies in what we have, but there's models, there are one-of-a-kind objects, there are paintings, anything that tells that story that we're trying to share across the board of the people and the human interest that was in those stories.
And they come to life. They come off the walls, they come off the displays, and they come to life here.
Certainly they do, and they bring to life that period that is gone, but there are still relics of it that happen today. On the river we still have passenger steamers, and that's something that people look forward to seeing every summer. So whenever they see that on the river, if they're out boating or they're there enjoying it, they can come here and see how that all came to be and why it's still relevant to history today.
My name's Jeffrey Spear, president of Sons and Daughters of Pioneer Rivermen. This collection that S&D has amassed over the years is probably the most mature river collection in existence. Some of the things in the collection, the backstory is actually better than the piece itself. For instance, the portrait of Captain Peter Sprague, for whom the largest steam stern wheel towboat ever built, the Sprague, was named. Captain Sprague was very proud of that boat, and his painting hung in the cabin long as the boat ran. She also was a big headache to run at times. One day it's told that the mate came upstairs after a particularly hard day and pointed his pistol at Captain Sprague's portrait and shot his eyes out. Now, if you get close to the portrait, you can see that there's a lot of repair to his face, not very well done. So, once again, actually a story that is much more fun than the piece itself. And there are many more in the museum like that. Thank you.
Taylor, can you talk to us about how, just as an organization, how do you guys communicate with your members? How do you get the word out, celebrate, all that stuff?
So once a year we have our annual meeting here in September. It's always a 3-day event typically. We get together, we do a boat ride, they give a presentation, we have dinner. It's just fellowship. And anybody that has that interest in river history is invited to come. It's a very fun weekend. It's accessible to anybody that would like to come, and we always welcome new members. But I think our most effective way of keeping ties with our members is quarterly we send out a magazine. It's called the S&D Reflector, and it came out in 1964. And that's filled with river history and different stories shared from those that worked on the river or have the history. And they share that knowledge in that magazine. It also gives up-to-date events about what's happening, what we plan to do, anything that's happening here at the museum. So that's really our what we call our Stern Line Telegraph. It connects us to our members.
My name is Lee Woodruff, and I'm chairman of the Board of Governors of the Sons and Daughters of Pioneer Rivermen. What I would like to talk to you about is the annual meeting we have every year here in Marietta, and it happens the second weekend after Labor Day. We have various activities planned during that weekend. On Friday night, we have a variety of different activities such as boat rides or other types of activities. On Saturday morning, we also have the annual meeting where all members of the organization are invited. During that meeting, we do the election of officers for the coming year. We also have various reports and activities that are presented by our subchapters. At noon, we typically have a luncheon, and that evening, we also have a banquet and dinner. And after that dinner, we have a guest speaker who will then talk to us about various river-related activities and projects. So anyone who is interested in river activities and river history, we would encourage them to join the organization and participate in our organization.
Over the last 83 years, you've got a lot to talk about here to cover, but let's talk about the highlights of the organization.
So in 1973, one of our most prominent members, J. Mac Gamble of Clarington, he passed away, and at that time he bequeathed the organization a large sum of money, which became an endowment, what we named the J. Mac Gamble Fund. And on top of us already having the River Museum established, this now gave us a long-term fund that we could put money into and build it up and let it become what it is today. And since that period, since 1978, the Sons and Daughters of Pioneer Rivermen through the J. Mac Gamble Fund have donated over $1 million to various organizations throughout the country, with the focus being on preserving river history. And also through that, in trying periods like from 2008, 2009, when the financial markets crashed, it was because of that money that S&D had that J. Mac Gamble was able to donate annually money for several years to keep this place going when the state of Ohio was threatening to make cuts, and this could have been on the chopping block.
Wow.
So we've been able to not only preserve river history, but protect it.
The Ohio River Museum, it's in its 81st year. Talk about some of the plans that you guys have for the future.
So this building that we're currently in opened, I believe, in 1973, and it didn't take long. As you can see, we've quickly outgrown it. We've got a large collection here and a lot of things that we'd like to display and tell that story. So about 10 years ago, a new plan came forward that the Ohio History Connection would like to build a new museum. And through various partnerships and agreements, I think it's going to become a reality with a groundbreaking happening this fall. The new museum will be in sort of a partnership with the Washington County Library, and it'll be housed under the same roof, but we'll have at least 4,000 square feet of new space that will be dedicated solely to the museum, and we're going to redevelop our exhibits and really develop that story that we want to share with the public.
Oh, that is fantastic. Yeah, that's really exciting. And then, with everything that's here, the relevancy to the history, can you talk a little bit about that?
So there's a little bit of everything from daily life to, life on a steamboat and how it was to travel, before railways or highways. So you really get to see how people that were, everyday people, how they had to, what modes of transportation they had to use and what was available to them. So like first class, second class, today, if you were on a plane today in first class, there were certain steamboats that you knew that were first class. There were others that were packet boats that were smaller that they got the job done. You need to get from point A to point B. So today you still see that in travel. You know, you can get the cheapest ticket you can get, or you can get the most expensive, and that was totally part of the plan back then as well.
Wow, so did you hear that, folks? History does repeat itself right here. So is there anything that we haven't talked about that you want to share with our viewers? Anything, you know, that's personal to you? You clearly have a rich tradition here.
Well, my family's connection, like I said, runs deep even with these museums. My great uncle Robert Thomas was a vice president of the organization, but he was also a very skilled craftsman. He built a lot of the steamboat models, and the models were built based off of his father's drawings. My great-great-grandfather was actually the master ships builder at the boatyard in Clarington, and it's through his drawings and renderings that my uncle then transferred and used those to build actual scale models of many of the boats that were built in Clarington, and now they're housed here.
So as I was touring, they talked a lot about the Snyder. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so it's the biggest object we have here. It's the WP Snyder, which sits outside on the Muskingum River. It's been here since September of 1955. Captain Fred Way Jr. was the impetus behind that. He approached Crucible Steel Company of America out of Pittsburgh, and this steamer was built in 1918, and he got them to donate it to the Ohio Historical Society. And in 1955, they actually brought it under her own power from Pittsburgh down here under great fanfare, a lot of celebrations. And since that time, it's been here. It's been one of the largest tourist attractions. She's the only vessel of her kind left of that period. And to us, she's our gem. The state owns her, but S&D works in hand with them to care for her and give insight to upkeep and maintenance and the history that we want to project from the boat and what it meant.
So Taylor, really quick, do you just want to take a minute for some recognition, appreciation for all the great people in the organization from way back when?
Yeah, from the beginning, it's been a collective effort, and it's all owed to the minds of Lizzie Litton, Fred Way Jr., J. Mac Gamble, B. and Woody Rudder, Jesse P. Hughes, all these old names that come to mind, that they were the catalysts that really helped continue this organization where we are today. And B is still with us in her mid-90s and an active part of our group. She's been so instrumental in a lot of the things that we do here, and their family. She's the daughter of Captain Fred Way Jr., and so we continue that connection of those river families continuing on today. So it's because of people like them and our current board and our members that we continue on in this organization with the dedication that we have toward preserving our river history here. Taylor, let's tell our viewers how they can find you. So we have our website, www.riverhistory.org, and we also have our Facebook page under S&D Reflector. Both of those sites are active, and we welcome anyone to visit them for more information. They can fill out a membership form and gain access to our previous S&D Reflector articles. So it's a wealth of resources on there connected to river history.